Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a centuries-old scientific cold case, and we're going to look at this strictly through the lens of a modern cryptologist. So forget the myths, forget the magic, and definitely forget the rumors. We are looking at the hard, physical evidence of an artifact that has literally defied human comprehension for over 600 years. Imagine a cipher so complex, so statistically impenetrable, that it actually baffled the greatest cryptographic minds in history. I'm talking about William and Elizabeth Friedman, the legendary NSA codebreakers who cracked Japan's Code Purple during World War II. They spent decades analyzing this exact text using early computers, and even they walked away totally empty-handed. No way around it, this is widely considered the ultimate unsolved puzzle in the entire history of cryptography. Okay, let's dive right into this dossier. Here is what we're covering today. First, the unsolved mystery itself. Second, Rudolph II and the alchemists. Third, the Kircher conspiracy. Fourth, we'll look at code breakers and historical comparisons. And finally, a geometric deception.
So, starting with part 1, the unsolved mystery. Opening the case file on MS-408.
Let's look at this completely objectively, okay? We need to strip away centuries of wild speculation to focus on exactly what we actually have in our hands. Here are the cold, hard facts. The manuscript is a small, late medieval volume, written on parchment made from calfskin. Modern radiocarbon dating definitively places its creation somewhere in the early 15th century. It originated in Central Europe, possibly northern Italy, and it contains over 200 pages of these intricate drawings and incredibly dense text. But here's the real kicker. The script is entirely unknown. 5 different scribes worked on this thing, yet no other document on Earth uses these characters. Over the centuries, the manuscript passed through many hands before antiquarian book dealer Hans P. Krauss ultimately donated it to Yale University's Voynich Library back in 1969. Now take a look at the Krauss catalog entry right here. It explicitly brands it the most mysterious manuscript in the world. And honestly, that isn't just marketing hype. It perfectly encapsulates its notorious reputation among the greatest minds in cryptography, who have tried and repeatedly failed to wrest its secrets from it. Moving on to Section 2, Rudolph II and Alchemists, the Imperial Suspects. So where did this thing actually come from? Let's trace it to its first major documented appearance, which is around the year 1600 in Prague, right at the court of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. Rudolph was famously obsessed with the occult, and he paid a massive sum of 600 ducats for it. After Rudolph, a book passed to Jacobus de Tepenek, who was the director of the emperor's botanical gardens and alchemical laboratory. And we know this for an absolute fact, because a modern cryptologist's absolute best friend, UV light, revealed Tepenek's erased, faded signature perfectly hidden on the very first page. Fast forward to 1639, and the book was in the hands of an alchemist named Georgius Barshakius. He wrote a letter that just perfectly summarizes the absolute confusion this thing caused. He described it as being, quote, profusely illustrated with pictures of plants, stars, and arcane chemical secrets. See, early owners didn't think it was some alien language. They firmly believed it contained highly guarded practical, medical, and theoretical alchemical knowledge that someone really, really wanted kept hidden. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. Just look at these elaborate diagrams. In medieval theoretical alchemy, natural elements were heavily disguised. I mean, you wouldn't just draw a chemical reaction. You'd use metaphors, a sun, a moon, or these complex plumbing systems representing vapors and emanations. This perfectly aligns with the arcane chemical secrets typical of 15th and 16th century theoretical alchemy, hiding the ultimate quest for the first matter. Which brings us to Section 3, the Kircher conspiracy, the scholar who went silent. This brings us to our prime historical suspect. Now, in the 17th century, if you had an impossible code to break, you called the Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher. He was a man so renowned for his intellect, they literally called him the Oedipus of Egypt. Let's look at the chain of custody here. A scholar named Johannes Marcus Marci eventually inherited the book, and around 1665 or 1666, he packaged up the complete manuscript and sent it off to Kircher in Rome. Marci was really hoping that Kircher, the so-called master of 100 arts, could finally break the code, and the letters documenting this transfer, they are absolutely crucial pieces of our historical case file. But here is where the history turns into a deeply thrilling conspiracy. According to the modern structural analysis known as the Lüth method, there is a serious smoking gun here. Once Kircher received the book, well, he went completely silent. He never mentioned it again. Why? The theory suggests that Kircher, who was arguably the most ambitious scholar in Rome, actually understood the manuscript. He realized it wasn't a language at all, but a non-linear technical matrix. He then supposedly absorbed its mechanical concepts for his own famous work, Mundus Subterraneus, and deliberately buried the original manuscript deep in the Roman college archives so no one could ever challenge his legacy.
All right, moving into Section 4, Code Breakers and Historical Comparisons. The Graveyard of Cryptology. Let's pivot from historical conspiracies to hard cryptology for a second. Why have standard decryption techniques completely failed? Unlike other famous unsolved historical ciphers, say the Zodiac Killer's later codes, which are just too short to analyze properly, or the crypto sculpture, which is a modern challenge, the Voynich text gives us plenty of data, but it just refuses to yield. If we compare it to typical 15th century ciphers, the differences are glaring. Typical medieval ciphers used really simple symbol substitutions to protect diplomatic secrets. They're incredibly easy for a modern cryptologist to crack. It also doesn't match known hoaxes, like the subtlety of witches, which was literally just random Latin dictionary words strung together. The Voynich text, though, it has a statistical distribution of words that actually mimics natural language. There is complex, structured repetition. It behaves just like a real language, which makes a simple medieval prank highly, highly unlikely. Because it looks so much like a language, the greatest minds treated it like one, and they completely failed. William Newbolt thought it was microscopic Greek shorthand, which is a brilliant theory, except it required the author to have magically invented the microscope centuries too early. The Friedmans thought it was an artificial language, which is historically totally out of place for the early 1400s. And polyalphabetic substitution, that's completely defeated by the text's highly structured repetition. Nothing fits the linguistic models, not a single one.
Section 5. A geometric deception? The modern breakthrough hypothesis?
So, the crucial point is this. If linguistic models fail over and over, we have to change the paradigm. Let's walk through this modern cryptologist's view, which is heavily emphasized by the Lüth method. Step 1. Discard the idea of a linguistic alphabet entirely. Seriously, it's not a language. Step 2. Look at the shapes. Every visible character is essentially a circle, acting as a base operative matrix. Step 3, the actual data is encoded in microscopic modifiers. We're talking about the exact angle of an opening, a tiny hook, a dot, or even a specific compass direction. And step 4, you have to recognize the sheer genius of the camouflage. The author specifically designed this geometric matrix to mimic mundane, hastily scribbled 15th century Latin shorthand, just to fool the prying eyes of rival physicians or inquisitors. It's actually brilliant.
Which leaves us with a staggering thought to wrap up on. If this text is actually a highly sophisticated, non-linear geometric cipher, then those simple herbal and alchemical drawings at the beginning, they might just be the warm-up. We have barely scratched the surface of the first 10 folios. It really leaves you wondering, with over 200 pages left to decode, what massive technological, philosophical, or perhaps even dark mysteries are still hiding right there in plain sight. Thank you for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this completely changed how you look at history's greatest puzzle.